welcome back to another episode of Slice of Life with Richa. This is Project Richa. What used to be, again, the ARP, psychotherapeutic, self-therapeutic multimedia project to solve the problems, challenges, and obstacles in our lives, as well as a self-improvement process to reach high goals and visions that we set for ourselves at one point, which has since then far grown beyond that and blossomed and burgeoned into a far greater comprehensive extension and manifestation of the self, which presents itself in various formats, concepts, series, ideas, analogies, and so on and so forth, as evident by the 5-day schedule that we have across the week, minus Wednesdays and Saturdays, which are reserved for end of the month special bonus features. But every other day, the other 5 days of the week, 7 a.m. in the morning on Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, some more than others. We have uploads for the early morning commute, and you can listen to them at any time at your leisure, whether you're coming back home or whether you're just, at any time over the weekend. If you're just busy, you don't have to pop in and out whenever at your leisure, or is convenient, or maybe to kill time. And only if you really want to and you find anything useful, or engaging, or entertaining, or interesting, whatever it is, right? Primarily, this project is meant for ourselves. It's like a time capsule. That's one analogy. It's a bowl of cherries as well. It's also another analogy for life is it's a game of survival. Another one is its various business departments. So each domain of life, from health, finance, relationships, character, purpose, so on and so forth, technology, science, mythology, religion, and la-di-da-di-da, security. So today, what we'll be covering, this is a Friday series. Again, usually has to do with typically administrative stuff, administrative online digital research, or tasks and duties that we conduct over the vast contrives of the internet. And so today, it's not really focused on the internet at all. It's just the form, the medium is going online and researching, or taking care of administrative tasks that are done online. However, that being said, the main domain of topic varies every single Friday. So this Friday, just like the past two, we're going to be continuing on spirituality, religion, mythology, fantasy, symbolism, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and so the first, we're just gonna start off here today with, and I've alluded to this multiple times. So this is one she's had a very fundamental impact on ourselves, on the personification of ourselves, on what we try to be, as a fragment. It's Senora Nueva de Guadelupe. It's the Latino version of Virgin Mary from Roman Catholicism. You think of the Vatican, and then they have multiple different prophets and stuff like that. And so one prophet would have been, in this case, the Lady of Guadalupe. And I want to explain a little bit of the significance to this here, because again, this is something that I hold very strongly, right? In addition to, so I already talked about Themis, which is a primordial Roman Greek god of a goddess, and the kind of impact that, not the impact, just piece of me, of us, very vaguely, but same thing applies, maybe a little bit lesser, but it's still very strong, because when it comes to, especially when I was growing up, there was depravity everywhere I went. There was self-entitlement, lot I could see in the world around me, watch little kids, watch full-grown adults, watch just the people in society around me. Lots of self-entitlement, lack of self-awareness, a lot of sinister, just really gross, disgusting stuff. And one of the things I use to kind of maintain that the pure component of the self, and to just generally be successful in life, right? Because you're trying not to stray into the wrong path in life. One of those main core people within my circle, or people is a bit of that's a little bit, we shouldn't say people, right? Because this is like an entity, is the Lady of Guadalupe. Because in South America, I can't express to you how important it is that the common folk and people in Colombia, in Venezuela, they look up to this in reverence to the Lady of Guadalupe, because there's a lot of violence, crime, there's cartels, there's drug cartels, okay? And this is the kind of thing that they face on a daily basis. Their lives are in danger. And in fact, many of the civilians take up arms. They become armed civilians to protect their own communities. You can see this on documentaries all the time. It's very evident. And this is a very important piece to me, because growing up in the household that I lived in, it was so unstable that I didn't know, what next. I was constantly walking on eggshells. Any little thing would piss them off. They would send them into some kind of crazy spiral. They'd start screaming and throwing items for like hours on end. And this would happen all the time. But then even when I walk into the public, when I was a kid just watching, this is the 90s. It's like 1995, 98. This is before before like Y2K 2000. But it was already like that, right? We had, growing up, it was a lot of fun, right? We watched like Eminem and, like Slim Shady era type kind of shit. But, there was also there was the entertaining side of it. There was a lot of riffraff, banter and fun, and, but then there was, the griminess came from people who were actually going through it, and those were real problems. Like, this is the real shit, right? This is real problems that people face. And these are one of the many ways, this is one of the less destructive ways. Some people turn to drugs and prostitution. They turn to, beating their own kids. They turn to some kind of whatever. They turn to, some kind of, they get derailed, right? And one of the ways that you can keep on track, aside from working on fitness, and I used to really enjoy calisthenics. And back then, we didn't call it calisthenics back then, right? This is in the 90s. There wasn't the whole calisthenics boom, but I was already doing stuff like that. One of the other methods I turned to was, of course, seeking out, when you're confronted with the face of the devil himself, with temptation, how do you conduct yourself? How do you maintain the strength and perseverance? How do you find the power within yourself to not corrupt yourself? And the Lady of Guadalupe was one of the figures, aside from Themis, that we impersonated, that we incorporated. And so, again, needless to say, Senora and blessings Guadalupe is very important to me, and we're going to cover that right now, right? So there's several figures here. They're listing, this is again just a search listing on Amazon, but I didn't actually make a purchase for this. But Pacific Giftware 10-inch Stadium Tangent statue, Our Lady of Guadalupe, San Juan Diego, and to go down here we have like 19 to 60 bucks, whatever. And again, it doesn't matter. These are just caricatures. They're just the material manifestation. It's just a statue. But what's more important is the conceptualization, the abstraction itself. And if you are religious, and I suppose if you are Catholic, then for you it's much more than just an abstraction. For you, if you are religious, and I don't know if you are, like some of you may or may not be, the viewers, right? If you are, obviously this is your God, potentially, that you're speaking to, right? So I don't mean necessarily for everyone it's just an abstraction or anything. It might mean even more to you. This might be your God that you pray to every single morning. And again, we can disagree. I'm not saying that I necessarily am in on that religion myself, but needless to say, if that's what you turn to keep your sanity and keep your personality intact, and from veering off into the wrong paths, then all the more power to you, right? And so, in fact, I'm very appreciative of people who do that. Actually, I have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for people who do whatever it is that you do to keep your sanity. We just talked about, Hinduism in the last Friday. We just talked about, that's just recorded half an hour ago, but it will be uploaded like a week ago. So whether you turn to Hinduism or Buddhism or spirituality, even like just humanism, you don't have to be a religion, right? You could just be trying to be a good person as an atheist, as an agnostic, right? That's the one I resonate the most with. No matter what it is you're doing to keep your regulation intact and trying to keep yourself together, that is whatever it is you do, you know, free country, do what you want as long as it works. As long as it works, go for it. Okay, all the more power to you. So further down here, Rio, Rand Virgin, the Guadelupe Summit Collection, all these seem to be one of the main things here when it comes to the main difference here, if you can't tell between this statue and various other statues, is that the lady, you know, Senora de Guadelupe, she's typically painted. So the statue is used with lots of vibrant colors. The robes in bright aqua blue and red, the sun, glaring sun behind. You take a look at the other statues like Anubis and Lady Themis. It's usually a bronze statue that doesn't have any painting. But when it comes to this particular figure, in terms of the Lady of Guadalupe, she's usually depicted holding a baby in her arms and standing on top of a cloud, and it's usually all colored. It's usually with vibrant colors. Okay. All right, so that's enough for. I don't want to cover any more about this because it's already talked a lot about. Like, I didn't even read the page. I was supposed to read the page, but I ended up divulging more about like our relationship instead of that. So let's just move on to the next one actually, because it's way too long. All right, so the next tab, it always takes a really long time just to load. So this one is actually the Virgin Mary. This is not the Lady of Guadalupe, but this is actually Virgin Mary herself, with Jesus Christ, of course, right? So this is pure Christianity. This is completely different. Well, it's not completely different. There is a very these are all prophetic religions, right? This is different from the polytheistic. This is different from Zoroastrianism, different from the Eastern, like Hinduism and Buddhism. This one has more to do with the prophetic religions, right? When you think of Muhammad, you think of Virgin Mary, you think of Judas, you think of Jesus Christ. Those are the main kind of figures that have to do with this. So Virgin Mary, Mother Mary, okay, BC Catholic, Our Lady of Lourdes statue, Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother figure, tabletop keepsake, rosary holder, holy water font. Okay, 10.2 inch sculpture, handmade, build classic, 4.9 stars out of 30. And once again, I actually considered, I'm not going to, because once again, I was stupid. And in my idiocy, I was using the American site. I don't know why. Like all 30, there's like 50 tabs here, and it's all the American site. I don't know what I was doing. This is what happens when you just Google on Bing. Anyways, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, the point is, I'm just like laughing at myself. That's all it is. So this is statue, right? This is very plain. I like that it's plain, right? It's just pure white, and it's, you know, it's a stark contrast from some of the other figures I have, which are like in brass, like pure like iron cast bronze. So it's just metallic, and actually very much enjoy like, so having, because like bronze basically symbolizes, it's like strength, right? When it's iron cast, it stands for strength and resilience. That's the symbolism that comes with that. So I try not to get things that are made out of resin when possible. It's also just fragile and easily, let's say it falls down, typically it will break, right? That has happened before actually. Like 15 years ago, to one of the statues in the household that I was the household, when I say it's actually, we moved around for like, oh god, we moved like 25 different places. It seemed like every 2 or 3 years we would move to a different place to rent here, rent there, you know, from the different districts. It'd be Scarborough, it'd be Leslieville, it was so chaotic. It would be like, you know, West Side, Ossington, and then it'd be like Markham, and it's like fucking, like, there's never any stability. But anyways, I guess that's why the statue broke. Because that's why the statue broke, right? It's like there was no stability whatsoever, and it was reflective of that. If you believe that, okay. I'm just pulling an analogy. I don't necessarily believe in that. I just thought it was funny. I swear to God, I've lived in like every single part of the city at this point. It's crazy. But that's good. It worked to my benefit, right? So it's because you learn from everything, right? Every added experience contributes to, if you don't succumb to the challenges and you overcome and you become triumphant and you're strong enough to persevere, then it only adds to your strength. Okay, But anyways, continuing forward, masterpiece from the BC Catholic collection of a true testament to the artistry and craftsmanship of skilled sculptors. Meticulously crafted, these classical art sculptures are museum quality replicas that will be a lasting testament to faith. There's more details, long lasting, guarantee. I'm not going to read through all that. Frequently bought. There you go. Like I said, people usually buy a statue of Virgin Mary with a statue of Jesus Christ. That's usually what happens. Go further down, more recent shopping trends. Just read typical like suggestions. Interesting here. This one looks more like what they've done is they've taken the style of Roman Greece and Athens, right? It's made of that kind of clay. Think of what's that? I remember when I was like in like second grade. What's that? It's a true story, right? It's based off of the volcanic eruption of Pompeii. So that was, I can't remember. It was like ancient. I don't know. Was it BC? I'm not sure, like 500 BC or after. I don't know. But it was a volcanic eruption that, of course, infamously and famously buried and destroyed and killed all the civilians within the village of Pompeii. And as the molten magma, covered and burned them alive, they were covered. Some of them covered by ash. Their entire town was covered by ash, burning, sizzling ash. And as morbid as it sounds, what ended up happening is, as a relic of history, their bodies were not preserved, but as the ash came and rained down on the civilians of Pompeii, and they burned alive, right? They were burned alive. They were buried by the ash, and then they burned alive. So their bodies burnt inside and were incinerated, cremated inside. What a painful way to die, right? But what ended up happening is they were preserved as artifacts because the ash could then preserve the form of it's insane because if you dig it was dug out already by the, what's the word I'm looking for, it's not architecture, it's this is escaping me, it's historians who go grave digging and stuff like that, although grave digging is more taboo, right? That's not something you're supposed to do. But I'm talking about the professionals, the historians who go there. I can't find the word off the top of my head right now. But the point is, when they dug it up, they found, like mothers holding their baby. It's a very sad thing, right? You see like this ash-covered deposit, and it completely forms a real-life figure of this mother holding their baby underneath piles and piles of incinerating ash, and their bodies are gone. Their bones are incinerated, but the form is still there, molded into the side of this hardened ash. And that's kind of what it reminds me of here when I see this figure over here. This is basically, even though, when you talk about Virgin Mary, she's not someone you would think of as like Roman Greece culture, or the historical, kind of pottery and artistry that they use, but they've kind of combined that here in one of these. That's the third one from the left, for $24 or whatever. But yeah, going further down, looking for something specific, technical details. Manufacturers in BC, so British Columbia. Item weight, product dimensions, country of origin is from China. Everything's made from China. Antique, painted, resin, solid. Lady of Lourdes. Customer reviews, 4.9. I say this as I'm Chinese as well. Okay, I'm partly Chinese, but still same thing. Everything is made from China. From the brand, go further down. Build classic. BC crucifix. Devotion to the passion is not an obsession with suffering. It is a yearning for love. Make Christ known and loved throughout passion. So again, this is Christianity, and regardless of whichever denomination you use, whether you're Methodox, Anglican, Protestant, Baptist, it doesn't, it's up. I'm not gonna try to like distinguish or determine which one. It's not relevant to this conversation right here. Here we go again. Virgin Mary, Mary Lourdes. Okay. So I think that's about it. It's a keepsake rosary holder. It seems like some people bought this for Mother's Day or whatever. And a tabletop Catholic figurine, 0.7 pounds. And let's move on now. Okay. So I think that's about enough. I did say that the rating is really high. It's 4.9 stars. And there's various comparisons over here. All right, moving on. All right. So it seems like we're turning back to what is this? What's the search result here? I'm trying to see. It seems to be there's a hybrid of Egyptian gods here. Right. So in this case, it seems like I was searching up the Egyptian sun god Ra, and yeah, well, no, it wasn't. It turns out the search query is for the African god Ra, but it's not. Ra is not African. It's just because it showed up at one point in my search history. But the wing god, you think it reminds you of think of it's gonna be a throwback to like early 2000s, like 2001. Does anyone remember that show called like if you were a kid back then, YuGiOh, right? And it was based off of themes of Egyptian culture, right, and hieroglyphics and so on and so forth. And they use a lot of symbolism there, but of course we're not going to refer to that. I'm talking specifically about the source material, which is Egyptian mythology. And so, of course, it reminds you of the card that they had there inside that show. I'm sorry, I want to call it cartoon. It's not a cartoon, it's an anime, that's what they call it. But the thing is, it's like, it was on like daily, it was on like Fox Kids or like TV, it was like channel, I can't remember, it was like channel 29 or some shit like that. And it would show up on every Friday. You had to wait a whole week. And it is like 6 days a week, you would not have it, and you'd wait until the end of the week, Friday night or Saturday morning to watch that show. And they had a it was, the cultural influence was from Egypt, and so they had a card there named what was it, Exodia, and everything, and all the theme and all the colors and all the the designs, the intricate designs were all molded after the Egyptian hieroglyphics. And so it's the same thing here, because one of the cards was the winged dragon of Ra, and so here is the mythological sun god Ra. Now I don't know, because I didn't actually go further in. I don't think I may or may not have a tab here open to search up what the sun god Ra represents, but I'm not sure that I do have a tab. So let's just go ahead and read here. So most of the figures here like $30, $39, 74, more expensive. And again, they're all like cold cast, bronze, iron cast, the first here is actually of Orunla, again of like Yoruba religion in Nigeria, but then the rest here are all from Egypt. So we have 11-inch Egyptian Ra mythological god, bronze. Next one over here, Veronese design, Egyptian sun god Ra. Another one here, sun god Ra. So one has wings, the other one is a humanoid form. It seems to be always balancing some kind of sphere on their head. Going further down, more I guess less relevant, but you can also see that some of these, because there are a lot of people who are well expertised in craftsmanship, right? That's clearly the people who are the craftsmanship, the people who create these statues right now, who are selling them. They run their businesses making these figures, right? That's their Amazon business. That's what they do. They are skilled in making these statues, and then what you can see is that they actually have full-blown sets. So the first one here on the bottom left, you can see, is 12 statues depicting all 12 Egyptian gods all together. So they include Ra, they include Anubis, they include the others, which I can't remember, like Sekhmet, I believe, is in there as well. And so they give a whole collection all at the same time, and that sells for more expensive, obviously. It's a whole bundle for $101. So that's that. Going further down, again, as we go further down, I see also there's some stuff here that kind of reminds me of like indigenous cultures. So when we talk about indigenous, they have the totem poles, right? So this is North American, the original, like the Iroquois, the Métis, and the what was it? Iroquois and Algonquin. But Algonquin is just named after it. Like there's various tribes, but the major tribes were Iroquois and Métis and so on and so forth. And so they had totem poles, and it kind of reminds me of the Egyptian kind of. It also reminds you of like Aztec and Mayans. So designs, again, they seems to be fairly cheap. Like, it's not surprising because these are a little bit more obscure, right? You wouldn't think, if you think of like, you know, a statue of Jesus Christ on the crucifix, it's probably likely that's going to be more expensive typically because it's such a widespread religion compared to something that's a more obscure mythology like the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So it's to be expected. But I don't think, in my perspective, for me personally, for us, we have never seen that in, like, we don't discriminate by popularity. If anything, I've been very clear that I hate popularity contests. I don't like the whole shallow, superficial, self-entitlement kind of stuff. Like, for fun, you can do it for jokes and giggles and shits and giggles, that's fine in the right context and right place, but generally speaking, that's like the least important of things, right? And so I'm not going to, long story short, I'm not going to separate between a religion that has, like, you know, 5 billion followers worldwide versus a religion that only has like 500,000. Like, I don't discriminate in that way. Like I said, Yoruba, Zoroastrianism, I don't give a shit, right? I don't care about that. They're all, you know, valid concepts, and they're valid, important lessons and fables and life lessons to learn from all of those. It doesn't really matter to me which one you take, because I take from all, personally speaking. I think that would make me, it would be hypocritical of me if I judge people that way. I don't, because I don't do that either. So that's why I don't have that kind of expectation. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, because that's a lot of statues here. But as you go further down, scroll further down, you can see that they're less relevant. Okay, so we've reached our first, I guess, major milestone, because up till this point, we've been covering tab topics surrounding, you know, yes, spirituality, religion, that specific various domain and subdomains over on Amazon. But now we're moving, so now, like I said, we did have tabs open that we pulled up because we wanted more depth, right? It's almost, I feel like a kid again. This is when, I know it's kind of different, it's bizarre, it's weird, non-standard, strange, aberrant, like, you know, I'm yes, when I was like 6, 7, 8, this is the stuff that I got my kicks off. I was really invested in this. Like, I was sitting there in the library with the I Spy Witness books and, you know, searching up like medieval era stuff, you know, dinosaurs, yeah, dinosaurs, but like stuff like this, like mythology, artifacts, history. Like, this is so important. It's so useful, right? It's so useful when you're confronted with, you know, everyday like challenges. What kind of poverty, disability, violence, conflict, neglect, like, I don't know what else, drugs, and like just shit. You're just confronted with shit in life. This is so useful. I remember, this is like I feel like a kid again. Like, honestly, this is like bringing me back to the 90s. Like, that's where I was, and this is like, it's such a throwback. There's so much nostalgia here. I have a Wikipedia page up here, and it's reminding me of it feels so good. So this is the page on Anubis, right? And I'm gonna read an excerpt here, and because I love reading too, and this is good because it's if you can't tell, my reading comprehension and my prose and oral expression is not quite as good as it used to be, which I feel is still good, but it's not where I used to be. So let's just start reading, right? So Anubis, also known as Impu or Ampu in stylization romanized, is the god of funerary rites, protector of graves, and guide to the underworld in ancient Egyptian religion, usually depicted as a canine or a man with a canine head, and specifically it's a jackal. I'm not sure why I didn't mention this, but like many ancient Egyptian deities, Anubis assumed different roles in various contexts, depicted as a protector of graves as early as the first dynasty, 3100 C to 2890 BC, so that's before Christ. And by the way, that means we're predating up to, if that's the dating system, then that means 2890 or 3100 plus the 2,000 years since then means this is over 5,100 years ago, roughly. So by the Middle Kingdom, he was replaced by Osiris in his role as Lord of the Underworld. One of his prominent roles was as a god who ushered souls into the afterlife. He attended the weighing scale during the weighing of the heart, in which it was determined whether a soul would be allowed to enter the realm of the dead. So it's kind of like someone standing in front, laying judgment, right? So Anubis is one of the frequently depicted and mentioned gods in the Egyptian pantheon. However, few major myths involved him. Okay, can't cover everything, obviously. We're just reading a sample paragraph. But you can see here the different headings. So name, history, roles, embalmer, protection of tombs, guide of souls, worship, references, creations, bibliography, further reading. So if you want, you can just go to Wikipedia, search this up yourself. Appearance is in small, standard, and large. Let me see if I can put this aside. And you can see the name in hieroglyphics. I think that's really interesting. Wikipedia is always great. I love Wiki. If you go down here, you can see that they have the name in hieroglyphics, how you would write it. I remember I was in like elementary, grade 5. I think it was like the same time that we were studying. It was like the month or a month before or after when we were studying the Mayans and the Aztecs. We did study the Egyptian culture and the hieroglyphics, and I remember practicing drawing out hieroglyphics at that time. I think that was like, it wasn't grade 5, so it was like grade 2 or 3 or something like that. But I obviously dug a lot further. A lot of everyone else was treating it like a fun activity, or it was like games and stuff like that. But I was looking for the actual cultural significance and the capacity to use this in everyday life, to overcome insurmountable obstacles, especially when you have a drunk ass father who is like a fucking wife beater ass, or like a freaking crazy deranged, not even like a cheating kind of mother who's like deranged, and she's constantly like smoking crack and pot. So you got a crackhead for a mother, and you got alcoholic for a father, like that kind of shit. Like, you turn to stuff like this will set you right. It doesn't, but it's hard. It's always hard. Life is hard, but there's always a way. And this was my solution among many other solutions I use, right? So genealogy, parents, siblings, consort, offspring. As usual, when you refer to deities and mythology and religion, gods are born of other gods, right? You think of like Athena and like Zeus and stuff like that. It gets really messy. It's kind of nasty. It's kind of gross, right? But just ignore that kind of shit. I wouldn't say ignore it, but like that's not, if it's not relevant, like just kind of cut that out. Because like I said, not all religion is good, right? There's like nasty parts towards like mythology and religion as well. So just keep that in mind. Consort, offspring, beliefs, practices, deities, it becomes your responsibility to sift through the good and the bad. You've got to discern. That's why it's important to have this skill called good judgment or jurisprudence, right? To separate and distinguish between what is appropriate and what is not. That applies even for mythology and religion and for spirituality and so on and so forth. Okay? Writings, symbols, objects, so on and so forth. And you know what? That's about it. There's a history tab here. I'm tempted to read the history, but I know that if we do this episode is going to drag on for like a whole fucking hour, and I don't want to do that. Besides, it's like probably part of this is if I read too much, it's not going to be considered like original work. So like most of this episode has to be commentary for sake of copyright, right? So I'm just going to leave that there. So let's move on to the next tab. All right, so let's see what we got here. Next tab. Okay, this is interesting. It seems I also, after that, decide to search up. So we're jumping now over from we jumped from Christianity over to the sun god Ra, Egyptian, and then now we're jumping over to Japanese. So this is Ashura. Okay. Now I will say, actually, the deeper, like if you go dive deeper in history, the roots of Ashura is not Japanese, right? It goes further into Buddhism, which would be like Chinese, and then you go even further than the original straits of Buddhism, and Ashura is Asura and Devi. So those are that's actually Indians, Indian culture and history, right? Particularly, yeah, Buddhism was derived from India as well, from the very roots. So even though I say this is going to be Japanese, but that's because that's the more modern interpretation by, you know, the past 1,000 years. So this is their own interpretation, and then their own derivative of Asura. Okay, so Kaido Asura statue, 13th, see again, 1013th anniversary, right? Again, it doesn't go as far back. It maybe be centuries old, maybe it's a couple, you know, 300, 400, 500 years old, but it's not the core roots. It's not 3,000 years old. It's not 5,000 years old, right? This is not that far back. We refer to like the Japanese version of Ashura. Okay, so 6mm metal sculpture. I think the reason why I sought this out is because, again, there's a lot of depictions in like I mean, I guess the most obvious depiction of Ashura in modern day pop culture is certain types of, you know, those Japanese animations, right? One of those has this as one, as like one of the main characters of it's like a pirate crew, but you know what I'm talking about probably if you watch it yourself. It's One Piece, right? And Zoro, although Zoro's name always reminds me of the Latino version of Zorro. You know, the movie Zorro? I'm not talking about like the anime. I'm talking about the movie Zorro, right? With the Z and the black cape and everything, you know. That's a Southern American influence, but you know, it's usually typical that, you know, when you think of that show, they usually do combine multiple aspects. But anyway, so of course it's a 3-headed, 6 arms, and it does represent hell. It represents hell. Like I said, not everything we're going to talk about here, we in ourselves have incorporated a lot of things that are not. Well, I just told you, I just said it myself in so many episodes ago. I bully the bullies, all right? I slander the slanderers. I retaliate, okay? And whatever I do, I will be effective. And to do that, of course, means that I incorporate some not so, I tame the shadow component of myself. And I've had to do this from a very early age, so I'm very good at it now, right? And that's very important, because you can't lose control of yourself, right? Anyone who doesn't have control over this, who can't regulate themselves, will inherently turn to some kind of crazy, nasty ass disorder like psychopathy, narcissism, vanity. Like it's just like borderline, like BPD. Like they'll fucking, like, you know, it's histrionic, the pettiness, the vindictiveness, right? If you don't have self-control over your shadow self, that's what happens, right? That's just an analogy. Obviously, I'm not referring to a shadow self like some kind of like wishy-washy religion kind of thing. Like, if you want to do that, you can, but I'm not going to refer to that. I'm talking practically, right? Real world practice, okay? You don't even have to resort to these kind of things. I'm just telling you, these are some of the interesting topics that we discussed that I've learned and, you know, make an influential impact on the self, ourselves. So going further down, we have Amazon 6cm metal sculpture. The reason why I've been reading most of this is because, if you can't tell, it's that the search results here don't really detail a lot of information. I'm not exactly learning a lot from the search result itself. Like, learning comes from actually going into Wikipedia and just like scouring all the information. This is just a search result. So Amazon, Kaido Takede, Tanaka, Kaido Ashura statue. Yeah, it's inevitable. The moment you start searching up like Japanese religion and then Shinto religion and stuff like that, what ends up happening is you're gonna see a lot of, because the whole anime thing has become mainstream now. I remember growing up in like the 90s, and it was such a niche thing. Like, what do you mean gaming, anime, nerd? That's what they used to do, right? It's not right. That's just what they did. It's a lot more mainstream now, and now there are still people nowadays who are all flesh shit, and they still bully people for liking anime, and still bully people for, they're full of shit. Fuck them. Okay, you do you. I'm not saying, I don't know. I can't really relate to that. I can't relate to the things that you like, but I still would not support these people like harassing you for that. Okay. I just take a more religious aspect. I can't relate with that. But if you like what you like, all the more power to you. I'm not judging for that, right? Just to be clear, I judge people who judge. That's what I do. Okay. that bully the bullies, all right? I keep saying this over and over again. Evil prevails when good men do nothing, okay? I'll say it as often as necessary. Okay, Tanya Kokoro, 6 centimeter metal sculpture. So we're just gonna end this here because this is not detailing a lot of information. So I'm not sure if the next tab topic actually has, I'm hoping the next one is a Wikipedia on the Ashura, but we'll see. You know what, let's just end it off here. I didn't realize that we're 40 minutes in and we talked about a lot of different things. So we talked about, things that weren't even on the tab topic. So it's loading right now, a new page. I can tell, but we're not gonna get to that because it's already too much. We're 40 minutes in, I didn't even realize. And honestly, I feel good about this because I made 2 recording sessions right now and we already covered a lot. I gotta go to work tomorrow, and honestly, doing 2 recording sessions after coming back from work is great. I spoke with a great friend and neighbor. She's like the real MVP, I always say. And I had a lot of fun today with some of the colleagues, and it was, I had like a scavenger hunt at work and stuff. And I came back, and sometimes I don't get a lot done, but today I'm fairly happy because we did two recordings, and we knocked off quite a few tabs, and we talked about a lot of things, right? So in this episode, we talked about things that weren't even on the page. We talked about the winged dragon, the sun god Ra. We talked about what was the Virgin Mary. We talked about what else, Ashura, and the origins of like Japanese Ashura all the way to like Chinese Buddhism, all the way to like Indian roots or Indian origins. And then we added on top of that, we also talked about Pompeii, the village of Pompeii, the burying of the ashes, and the overall story, the tragedy that befell that little village. So there's been a lot of stuff to talk about, and I think we also had our first Wikipedia page, which is great, and then we got to read. So I think that's a good place to leave it off at. We'll continue off. The next topic here is going to be Durga, and yes, this is more on Indian culture, and Durga is very important to me as well, but not doesn't have as big of an impact. But the core themes of power and strength directed towards the subjugation and conquering of evil, that Durga is it's a maternal figure to stamp down, to crush. It's a very firm affront to any source of I'm just gonna say it. I don't like to use the word evil, if you can't tell. I hate using the word evil because there's so much religious, it's been used in history as a way to condemn innocent people, right? Just like religion has been religion is powerful in good, like every tool has capacity to be used for good and awful things. So yeah, religion has been used to condemn innocent people before. Examples like Galileo Galilei, right? Examples of like the Crusaders, right? Like there's been countless times where millions of people have died at the behest of a tool like religion to subjugate and control the masses. And then so I just want to be clear here, the notion of concept here when it comes to Durga is again to fight against evil. Okay, I still don't like to use the word evil, but like just say wrongdoing, like just like shitty behavior. Today we have a much better understanding. We've kind of like listed that out in psychology, right? The different destructive traits like the dark tetrad, like Machiavellianism, the sadism, paranoia, all the different types of like personality disorders and stuff like that, and the contributing traits that lead up to it. You don't have to be disordered. You could be a normal average person but still be a jackass, right? So we have like through scientific means like detailed that out, but there's still meaning behind seeking out the religious and spiritual and mythological connotations and so on and so forth, right? So Durga is what we'll lead off with the next episode, and I'm gonna wrap this up. So I'll see you guys in the next Friday, and it's gonna be like in April it's gonna be in April at this point. This is so far ahead, yes. But yeah, cheers and good night.